She was the company's most powerful CEO, lying unconscious in her own building, and the only person who dared break the rules to save her was the janitor everyone overlooked. But when his secret past was revealed, the whole office went silent. The hum of fluorescent lights echoed across the empty halls of Harland Enterprises, blending with the soft rhythm of a mop swishing across polished marble floors. It was almost midnight, and most of the city's skyline glittered far below the office tower's glass walls. Ethan Cole, the night janitor, worked quietly, methodically, with the patience of a man used to being invisible. His blue uniform was faded from years of washing, his hands calloused, and his mind occupied by thoughts of his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, sleeping soundly back home. She was the reason he kept going, the reason he swallowed the pride that once came with the uniform of a U.S. Army medic. Now his battlefield was this empty skyscraper. His mission: keep it spotless, keep his little girl fed. The guards downstairs chatted through their earpieces, their laughter bouncing faintly through the intercom. Ethan didn't pay much attention until their tone changed. "Level 18's restricted tonight," one of them warned sharply. "CEO's orders. No one goes up there." Ethan froze mid-swipe, glancing toward the elevator. That was odd. Evelyn Harland, the company's powerful young CEO, rarely worked this late. Still, it wasn't his business. He'd learned the hard way that curiosity only got a janitor in trouble. Yet something about the tension in the guard's voice unsettled him. As the minutes ticked past midnight, a strange silence took hold. Then, without warning, a loud thud echoed from above. The sound was sharp, metallic, like something heavy crashing onto the floor. Ethan's head snapped up. "What was that?" he muttered. The guard's radios crackled again. "Stay where you are," one barked. "We're checking it out. Nobody moves until we clear it." Ethan's gut tightened. He'd heard that tone before, in Afghanistan, when something was wrong and no one wanted to admit it. He put the mop aside and moved cautiously toward the stairwell. His boots squeaked slightly against the tile as he climbed. Each floor he passed grew darker, quieter, until he reached the 18th. The smell hit him first, acrid like burning plastic. Then came the flicker of emergency lights through the glass hallway. Ethan's pulse quickened. "Fire," he whispered. A haze of smoke began to seep under a nearby door, marked Executive Office. Through the small window, he could barely make out a shadow slumped against the desk. He pulled his radio from his belt. "This is Ethan on 18. There's smoke coming from the CEO's office. Someone's inside." Static. Then a harsh reply: "Do not enter, janitor." "That's an order." "Fire team's on the way." "Stay clear." But Ethan's instinct screamed louder than any voice in his ear. He'd spent years dragging soldiers from burning wrecks, patching wounds with his own hands. He knew how fast a minute could mean life or death. He looked again through the glass, saw movement, a faint twitch of her arm, and made his choice. He dropped the radio, ripped off his jacket, and covered his mouth. "Hang on," he muttered, backing up before charging at the door with his shoulder. The impact cracked the frame, but it didn't open. He hit it again, harder. The third time, the lock gave way. As the heat rushed out, the sprinklers hissed to life above him, and Ethan stepped into the smoke-filled room, his heart pounding with a single thought: "I won't lose another life tonight." The moment Ethan broke through the CEO's office door, a wave of suffocating heat and smoke hit him like a wall. The air tasted of metal and ash, stinging his throat as he pressed forward, squinting through the grey haze. The sprinklers above sputtered weakly, their thin streams barely denting the spreading flames that licked the walls. "Miss Harland!" he shouted, his voice muffled by the roar of the fire alarm. There was no answer, only the hiss of burning fabric and the crackle of melting wires. He swept the flashlight from his belt across the room, its beam catching the glint of a silver bracelet near the overturned chair. And then he saw her. Evelyn Harland, the company's iron-willed CEO, lay motionless beside her desk, one arm limp, her phone flickering on the floor beside her. For a split second, she didn't look like the untouchable executive everyone feared. She looked human, vulnerable, fragile. Ethan didn't hesitate. He darted forward, dropped to his knees, and checked her pulse. It was faint but steady. Relief surged through him, but the smoke was getting thicker by the second. "You're not dying here," he muttered. He tried lifting her, but a fallen beam blocked the exit. He grabbed the extinguisher, blasting the flames enough to shove it aside. The heat seared through his sleeves, but he pushed harder, gritting his teeth until the path cleared. "Come on, lady," he grunted, lifting her in his arms. She stirred faintly, mumbling incoherently, her hand clutching at his shirt. Through the radio on his hip, the guards' voices crackled urgently. "Cole, what are you doing up there?" "The fire team's on the way. Get out of there now!" Ethan coughed violently, barely able to breathe. "Too late for waiting," he snapped. "She's unconscious. If we wait another minute, she's gone." He cut through the thick haze toward the stairwell, each step a battle against his burning lungs. The alarms blared louder as the ceiling above groaned, a deep, rumbling warning of collapse. When he reached the glass corridor, 2 security guards appeared at the far end, waving frantically. "You can't come this way. It's blocked. The fire's spreading," one shouted. Ethan didn't slow down. "Move!" He barked, his voice commanding, instinctive, the tone of a soldier, not a janitor. The guards froze, stunned by the authority in his voice. He kicked open a side door to the emergency exit, slamming his shoulder against it until the latch gave way. The cold rush of night air hit him like salvation. He carried Evelyn out into the open, coughing, his eyes red but determined. Once they reached the stairwell landing, he laid her gently down, brushing soot from her face. Her eyes fluttered open, dazed and unfocused. "Who are you?" she rasped weakly. Ethan managed a faint, grim smile. "Just a janitor who doesn't listen well." She tried to respond, but her voice broke into a cough. The sound of approaching sirens echoed below, and Ethan sat back, exhausted but relieved. For a moment, the world was silent again. Just the steady beat of her pulse beneath his fingers, proof that defying orders had been worth it. What no one knew, not even Evelyn, was that this night would awaken a part of Ethan he thought he'd buried forever. The soldier, the protector, the man who once saved lives for a living. And before dawn broke, that truth would no longer stay hidden. Morning light poured through the hospital window, soft and golden, cutting through the antiseptic white of the room. Evelyn Harland stirred slowly, her mind still foggy from smoke inhalation and painkillers. The last thing she remembered was choking on thick, black air and seeing a man's face through the fire. Rough hands, soot-covered skin, eyes that held calm in chaos. She had always believed she was in control, that no one could save her but herself. Yet here she was, alive, because someone had refused to obey. "The janitor," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "Find him!" Down in the waiting area, Ethan sat quietly, his uniform still stained with ash, despite the nurse's protests. His right arm was bandaged, and his face bore a thin burn mark across his cheek. But he wasn't thinking about that. He was staring at his phone screen, a picture of Lily, smiling with a missing front tooth. His daughter was his world, and this job was supposed to be safe. No surprises, no fire, no memories of war, just a paycheck and peace. But fate had other plans. The door opened, and Evelyn's assistant Claire approached cautiously. "Mr. Cole," she said, studying him. "Miss Harland would like to see you." Ethan stood, brushing off his uniform, and followed her into the room. Evelyn was sitting up now, her expression unreadable. For a moment neither spoke. Then she said softly, "You ignored direct orders from security." "You could have died," Ethan shrugged. Wouldn't be the first time. Something about the way he said it made her pause. "You talk like a man who's been in danger before." He gave a small, wry smile. "Old habits." Claire, who had been silently watching, stepped forward with a folder in hand. "Miss Harland, we ran a quick background check. He's not just a janitor." Evelyn took the file, her eyes scanning the first page. Then she looked up, astonished. "Ethan Cole, former U.S. Army medic, Silver Star recipient. Served in Syria. You saved an entire unit under fire," Ethan sighed. "That was a long time ago, ma'am. Why are you working here?" she asked quietly. He hesitated, then said, "Because medals don't pay bills. And my little girl, she needs stability, not a father chasing ghosts from the past. Evelyn looked at him differently then, not as an employee, but as a man who'd sacrificed everything for his family. The arrogance that once defined her melted into gratitude. "You risked your life for me," she whispered. "Why? Because someone had to," he said simply. "And I've seen what happens when people wait for permission to do the right thing." For a long moment, silence filled the room. Then Evelyn extended her hand, her voice trembling just slightly. "Thank you, Mr. Cole. You saved more than my life that night. You reminded me what real courage looks like." Ethan nodded, humbly, his eyes drifting toward the window. He wasn't a hero in his eyes, just a father trying to make it through another day. But deep down, something stirred again, a sense of purpose he thought he'd lost forever. What he didn't know was that Evelyn Harland had plans for him, and his days as just the janitor were about to end. 2 weeks later, the fire was nothing but a fading headline: CEO saved by brave janitor during late-night blaze. The news outlets had moved on, but within the towering glass walls of Harland Enterprises, whispers still followed Ethan wherever he went. Some employees nodded at him now with newfound respect. Others stared, unsure how to treat the man who defied orders and saved their boss's life. Ethan, as always, kept his head down, his mop gliding across the polished marble floors as if nothing had changed. But inside, something had. He'd been noticed, and not for the first time since his military days. That attention made him uneasy. He wasn't looking for recognition. He was just trying to make ends meet for Lily. That morning, the intercom buzzed. "Ethan Cole, please report to the CEO's office." The other janitors exchanged glances. "You're not in trouble, are you?" One joked nervously. Ethan gave a faint smile. "Guess I'll find out." He straightened his uniform and made his way up the familiar staircase, the same one he had carried Evelyn Harland down through smoke and chaos just days ago. Now sunlight streamed through the glass walls, and the faint scent of new paint filled the air. The office had been restored, but the memory of that night still lingered like an unspoken truth between them. When he entered, Evelyn stood by the window, her posture elegant, yet softer than before. She turned, smiling warmly. "Ethan, I was hoping you'd come." He nodded politely, unsure what to expect. "Ma'am, if this is about that night," she raised a hand. "It's not about the fire, Ethan. It's about what comes next." She gestured for him to sit, sliding a crisp folder across the desk. "That's an official job offer. Head of Safety and Emergency Response. You'd train our staff, oversee drills, and ensure this never happens again. The salary's triple what you make now, full benefits, and insurance for your daughter." Ethan blinked, the words not sinking in at first. "Ma'am, I'm not exactly executive material," Evelyn chuckled softly. "Neither was I when I started. But you've got something this company can't buy: instinct, leadership, and heart. I need people like that." He looked down at the folder, his hands trembling slightly. For the first time in years, the idea of a future didn't feel so distant. "I'll think about it," he murmured. "Don't think too long," she said kindly. "Some chances don't come twice." As Ethan left the office, Lily came running down the hall. Evelyn had arranged for her to visit as a surprise. She jumped into his arms, holding a drawing she'd made, him in a blue uniform, standing beside a woman in a suit, both smiling. At the top, in big, uneven letters, it read, "My Daddy the Hero." Tears stung Ethan's eyes as he looked at the picture, then at Evelyn watching from her doorway, pride and gratitude in her gaze. He realized in that moment that maybe second chances weren't about erasing the past. They were about learning to live again despite it. And as he walked out into the sunlight with Lily in his arms, the former soldier turned janitor finally allowed himself to believe that heroes didn't always wear medals or ranks. Sometimes they just wore blue uniforms and never stopped doing the right thing no matter who told them not to. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Drew Daily Stories, where every story reminds us that courage, love, and kindness can come from the most unexpected places.